What's up, guys? It's Damp. Wanted to do a video today on the new update in Russian Fishing 4. There's a lot of content in here, and a few of you had asked, my thoughts and what I would pull out of here and what I would do differently now that the patch is out. Their skill point resets, so I'm gonna get into some of that, not all of it. I'll probably make another video for some of it, but we'll go ahead and get started. I'm gonna cover the patch notes first. Overall, there is a lot of stuff in the patch notes. You can find it on the forums under announcements, but what I'm going to talk about are the main highlights. If you guys don't want to go there, you don't feel like reading the patch notes, or you don't really know what it's saying, I'm going to pull out the stuff that's important, and we're going to go from there. So to start, there's a lot in the patch regarding skill points and a lot of skill point reworks in some of the trees. The most important thing to you as a player is that your skill points were reset. So if you're logging into the game and you don't go to your skill tree, you probably don't even notice it. But all your skill points were reset due to major changes within skill trees. So to start with float fishing, it doesn't look like anything's really changed here. Outside of the fact that if you unlock hair rig or a particular type of a rig in one tree, for example, in floating, if you unlocked hair rig, it will actually unlock in your feeder tree. That was a small change that was made, but I don't really notice any changes in float fishing, which is unfortunate because it's probably the one that needed the most to benefit a newer player as far as moving match route up and the Bolognese rod. You guys already know my thoughts there. So I would have hoped match rod would have moved up, but it didn't. And that's not to say that all the skill point trees were really bad, because they're not. They're all these moves, I think overall they benefit the newer players. So we look at spin fishing, for example, just to touch on a couple highlights. The bait caster moved up, which is really, really good for newer players. It looks like it's about 40 to 50%, or 40% from 50%. It's hard to tell. That means wobbler moved back, which is probably a minus, because wobblers are really fun to fish with. Everyone always asks, how do you get that twitching ability? But you have to unlock wobblers first. They also separated spoons and spinnerbaits, which again, I don't know that that's a big deal outside of you catch bigger fish with the spoons, and sometimes you catch fish that are too big when you're utilizing spoons as a newer player. So that's probably the purpose for it, which was a good idea. Outside of that, it doesn't look like there's a ton of changes outside of the addition of the low profile reel, which is here. These are again the smaller bait casters you typically see for bass fishermen in NA. Really, there isn't a lot to say about this tree. I don't think I would change a ton. I still think fishing with spoons is pretty much a must unlock there, and I'd stick with what I said before. Fishing with spoons, jigging depending on your preference, and then wobblers are still the unlocks. So although moving bait casters up, if it did go to 40-45%, is a positive change for newer players, I would say. It's a little easier to get to bait casters, which would be a good thing. From here, we'll go to bottom fishing. So bottom fishing, the biggest change here is that carp rods are now unlockable. It looks like it's about 50 to 60%, which is good. It would have definitely changed how I bought my feeder rods and my tackle moving forward. I probably wouldn't have bought a cold stream. I would have went right to the expensive carp rods, but either way, it's a positive change for, again, mid-level newer players. One of the minuses I don't like is that method feeder got bumped back to 90%, because this, I think, is the best rig to utilize on Bear Lake. So that's one I don't really care for. You can see here, use of a leader in feeder fishing is really kind of far down. I don't know that players will respond well to this, and I don't truthfully understand the purpose of moving that back that far, why it's just not an automatic unlock. I don't know why it has to be based off a skill percentage, but this is another addition that's new. I really don't notice a ton of other changes. Let me know in the comments if there's other changes to these skill trees, guys, but the biggest one is that carp rods are now unlockable early on, which again is it's good. It's a positive change. Then we go into making ground bait. Nothing changed here. It looks like bait harvesting. Nothing changed here. It looks like outside of the new does that we'll cover later in the video. But as far as unlockable things, there's nothing that changed in bait harvesting. Lure making, same thing. you guys don't care about that anyway. So the new skills are overall, I'd say it's a positive change to the game. I think it's good. The changes they made overall, I think, are better for mid to intermediate level players. So I think that's a good change. Moving on to a couple of the other notes here. I mean, you have the spool of your reel now rotates, making it easier to see when you have a fish. I'm not going to walk over there and, or edit that in. I mean, you guys, you know what that means. There are no more game servers, so everyone right now is fishing on the same server. So you can't pick server 1, server 2, server 3, which truthfully, it might make it easier for a newer level player to know or to see what fish are being caught in an area. Overall, not a huge change in my opinion. I don't really think it affects a player's quality of life much. And I don't know the reason behind it. So moving on to probably some of the biggest mechanical changes are that the line thickness and the components affect bite rate of particular fish. So there's a listing of some of the species. I believe they say trout, ass, brim are 3 of them. As far as if you're using hooks that are too big, it's going to reduce a bite rate of a particular species that may be a little more susceptible or particular about how they take certain lures or baits. And then that ties into line thickness, now affecting bite rate as well, which ties into the release of the new leaders. So there are more leaders in the game. You can see they've added this monofilament all the way up until 80 pound or 36 kilos. And there is a new fluorocarbon leader which goes up to 18 kilos here. It looks like this is a little bit of a lower ended one that was also added. So there are more leaders. It appears it's for a purpose, and that purpose is later in the game. It appears that when you do feeder fishing, when you get to mid to, I don't want to say later in the game, but mid-level to high-level feeder fishing, you can now add a leader to your feeder systems. So if you were using, I'll show you. You notice I have method feeder, which I won't be able to utilize now because it's too high. But if you look here, you can see that you can now add a leader. And I'll talk through which ones you guys want to buy in another video. But you can now use a leader on your setups here. So that does seem that certain species, if not all species, will be directly and or indirectly impacting your bite rates based off use of a leader, not using a leader, the type of line you're going to use, which I think is a good change because it moves, it moves it to much more of a simulation. And anytime we get information that impacts regarding the impacts of any type of mechanic on bite rate is good that the devs are coming out with that. So that's a good thing as well. The old boilies were removed. So if we look at these boilies here, these were now removed from the shop. So if you have them, you keep them. If you don't, you can't get them anymore. They added bite alarms, which I'll show you in the shop. And I'll kind of talk through that briefly. So these are going to be in the accessories section. The West Hill horn, the West Hill blink, and 3 different bells now that you're able to purchase. This looks like the old one. Obviously, you guys don't give a shit about bells, so we aren't going to talk about that. We're going to talk about these here. So the R2-D2 here, this is a blink. Its name is exactly what it does. It makes no noise. It just will obviously blink and give you a light indicator when you get bit. So for night fishing is where that's going to shine, but you guys probably don't care about that. A lot of you alt-tab, you fish. You leave it up in the background while you're watching YouTube or movies or videos or whatever it might be. So this is your other option here. So my opinion is you want to get 3 different ones so that you know what rod's going off. But this sounds a lot more like a smoke detector, just FYI. So as you go through and you're considering buying these, some people can probably find these annoying. I've also heard, while I'm on the topic, that the blue blink is kind of hard to see right now. So just FYI. But if you want to be able to have a different tone or light indicator for each one, you'd have to buy different ones of these. So one of the changes I think that is the most positive in this update that isn't going to get a ton of attention, well, it might, but it's probably going to take a backseat to the bite alarms and some other things. But if you guys look at every time you go to a shop, you're out of stock on cheese. You're probably out of stock on potatoes. Now you have the ability to craft those. So later on, I'm going to go into details on how you make them now. But if we were to look at our crafting tree, there's a lot of new changes here. So if we go through and we look, so you've got potatoes that are new, oatmeal is new, making wheat grain is new, cheese is new, pea porridge is new, egg dough, polenta, whatever that is, honey dough, all these are new. So that's great, because I'll tell you, it's extremely expensive and frustrating to come up the tree when it's taking you 10%. You have to work 10% to get to the next skill. So this is great for people leveling bait harvesting. For where I am, I'm at the point where I'm at 83%. It's like a dead zone. It takes forever to move up. So unfortunately, if you're a higher level bait harvester, you're still stuck with digging and making bait fish is the best way to increase your skills, which is kind of unfortunate. However, for newer and mid-level players that are going through and crafting baits, and you want to be able to make your own fish pieces, make your own bait fish, it's a great change. So as we go through here, I went ahead and I ran some tests, and I'll show you guys. So we're going to go through and look at potatoes, because this is a bait that people often want. So if we go, one of the things you'll notice, you get 5 pieces of potatoes, and it is not edible. So you can see there's no potatoes here. So there is no way to eat them. So that's a question that we get commonly as streamers, is what of the food can you eat and then turn into bait, similar to how you used to be able to do that with bread. So if we go back to bread, most of you guys know that you used to be able to take 1 piece of bread and make maybe 30, I believe, a while ago. I don't know how long ago this has changed, but if you make 1 piece of bread now, you only get 12 pieces of bread dough. So for the potato cubes, same thing kind of applies. I wanted to know, can I eat them? And if I go down to 1 of 5 pieces, am I still going to get the same amount? Looks like that's been changed. So my bait harvesting is about 83%. The potatoes cost $1.90. They're only available at the farmer's market, which is across from the grocery store in the winding rivulet. So for $1.90, I am making 47 potatoes. Now in turn, on Volkov, 30 potatoes cost you $4.20 in silver. I should say $4.20 in silver. So that's great. Early on, it's going to help new players, but potatoes are dangerous as a new level, and I thought that was the whole point of why I thought they had made points as a development team, that they said something to the extent of, we don't want newer players to be able to have access to some of these baits, so that's why we leave the stock levels low. This would completely counteract that point, so I'm not sure. Either way, it's a good thing to be able to, as a new player, to have access to it. Whether you should use it or not, that's not really the point of the conversation. So anyway, moving through to cheese, which is another one that people struggle to get. So cheese is a little bit different than the potatoes. So in order to get the cheese for this bait, first of all, you need to be able to go to Kuori, which is a level 16 lake. So if you can't go to a level 16 lake, you can't make the cheese, which would align more with their statement where they said, we want, or I believe they've said it at one time or another, we don't want people to have access to cheese at lower levels because you're going to catch way bigger fish than are intended. So this would align with that. Now, that being said, if you look at cheese is $5 and I shouldn't say $5, but it's $5.80 in silver to buy on Kuori. It is edible. The more you eat of this, the less you get. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So we're going to go ahead, see how much cheese I have. So I have 1 full wheel of cheese. So if I eat 1 piece of this, all right, so I went ahead and ate cheese. And then I go in and I make this, rather than getting 47 pieces that we did with the potatoes, you'll see that we have 42 pieces here with the cheese. So it seems, as I've run through some tests, it lowers by 5 the amount of cheese you get each time you eat part of it. So take that information for what it's worth. But the most important thing to come out of this is it is more expensive to craft your own cheese than it is to buy cheese in the shop. Now, with that, this gives you the flexibility to be able to use it either way, which is a great thing. But on top of that, it gives you the ability to get bait harvesting experience where you wouldn't have gotten that before from something you probably need along the way. So obviously it's a positive change. Now, as we look at some of the new doughs, I've kind of already went through those already, but you've got the oatmeal. You can now make wheat grain. In order to make wheat grain, just FYI, you have to get the wheat grains from the farmer's market. Again, they are $2.90 to buy there. Again, based off my skill level, I'll show you how much I'm going to get from this. So I made 47. To buy 30 of them at Volkov is $3.90. So you're going to make more than this would be a better value for you to make it rather than purchase it, which is the opposite of the cheese cubes, like we talked about before. Now the difference in cheese cubes is negligible, by the way. It's only a little bit. But anyway, getting back on topic. So looking at the wheat grain, you've got pea porridge, you've got egg dough, you've got honey dough. So all these different things. So what I did is I took, I did kind of the same experiment with honey. So we look through honey dough. We're going to prepare these. And we get 47. So I should still be able to eat something. We're going to eat one of the honey dough. Okay. Or one of the honey, rather. And we're going to go back and make the honey dough. And what you'll see here is you have a significant fall off. So that goes from 47 down to 40 now. So keep that in mind. You can't exploit that like you kind of used to be able to do with bread at a certain point. I don't know how long ago that was removed. Maybe it was this patch. I don't know for sure. But keep in mind, in order to get eggs, you have to buy those also at the farmer's market. So it's almost like you have a trip to the Winding River in your future if you want to do any of these new recipes, or the vast majority of some of the new ones. So with that, a couple of you guys usually ask, you're logging on, you just come home from work and you want to know, can I get anything at the river? You can't. It's all sold out. So I don't want to say it's all sold out. I'll be a little more specific. The new stuff that you would want to get there at a lower cost is already out. It was out the second you were able to log in, at least on the NA servers, or you know, on the English-speaking server. You could, as soon as you logged in, it was all gone. So don't waste your trip going there to try and get bite alarms, to try and get the leaders. All the leaders that you would want to buy are out of stock. Now, that being said, they're in stock at Mosquito. I've found them on Volkov, so they're probably in stock in Sura. Everywhere else except for the Winding River looks to have a supply of them as of currently. And today it's 11:30 Eastern, March 14th. So just if you're just coming on and you're looking at the video and you wanted to know those things before you went to the shop, I figured that was worth mentioning. If you're watching this later on, who the hell knows if it's in stock or not, where it's in stock. But with that, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope that helps. I hope it gives you some insight on some of the changes. Some of the next videos I'll be doing will be with some of the new gear after I've had a chance to sample it. What you want to buy, what you don't want to buy. I'll try and get it out within the next day or so. So if you're going to play a lot on this weekend, you'll be able to have an idea on what you want to spend your money on. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.